On today's Minute of the Apes, Dane coined the term aponauts and he uses in the script, and we almost have an actor say it in this next minute. Almost. We're still going to have to wait in anticipation. Oh, God.
Hello and welcome to...
We haven't stopped hitting Richard.
God, I can't even say the intro. It's, welcome to Minute of the Apes, but I just... really... that maniacal, I'm so proud of myself because he is funny. That's Richard.
Heyo.
The one over here wearing his Rick and Morty hat.
Yeah,
that's Sean.
Today.
I'm Todd.
Sean.
Let's get going. Minute 23. Sean, what's going on?
All right, we're starting minute 23 with the Japanese newsreader still talking and ends with Dr. Dixon saying to start slowly.
Here we go with minute 23 of Escape from the Planet of the Apes.
One of the two American spaceships believed until now to have disintegrated in orbit splashed down unexpectedly yesterday in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Southern California and is stated to have been manned, if you can call it manned, by monkeys.
General. Anyone get this man? I have nothing to say, General. I'm sorry, boys. Not now. Have a little lighter, please. Here comes the chairman. Oh, Mr. Chairman. What do you expect to find out this meeting? How about a start? Could you give us any information at all about that? Have you got any comments?
As the President's senior science advisor, what do you expect to experience from this historic meeting?
Fear.
Dr. Haskell, what do you mean by that?
All right, now. After I break the news, I want you to start slowly.
All right, as of minute 23, we have a planet's worth of humans plus 2 apes and 2 living apes and 1 dead ape. So in the previous minute, I usually try to watch these movies with subtitles on just so I don't miss anything. When they went to the when they went to the French, German and Japanese people, they didn't subtitle it. They just said speaking French, speaking German, speaking
really?
Japanese.
But you can turn that on your... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I can turn it on what?
You can turn that language on. You have to turn the language on. That's how I did it with, what was that show what was that Scandinavian show? Black?
I know which one you're talking about. I didn't ever watch it, but I can't recall.
So what you do is you go and you actually change the language on your settings.
So if I went...
And turn off subtitles, and what happens is it will actually play the real audio for what's happening. Wait, I'm sorry, I'm totally confused.
No, I get what you're saying. That when you turned on subtitles, it might circumvent the natural subtitles that would be in the scene.
So if you put on subtitles,
stupid.
If you put on subtitles for the language, you might actually be able to get them.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't watch it without subtitles.
Well, regardless,
so
it's weird.
Regardless, when they got to the British person, I just wanted the subtitles say "speaking British,"
which
now that's in the script. The British newscaster's dialogue is actually here, where the other ones were just part of a montage.
Again, this would have worked better with that whole idea of somebody even turning the channels for us, so we get that until they get to something we can understand, we would understand it's being broadcast in a language.
Like you go into a room that has 20 monitors up there all over, everybody in the world's talking about it. Look, Japan, China, France.
Germany. Literally, they're in a motherfucking library, and they shot on one wall, they shot on the other wall, and now they're shooting on the library side that actually has the books on it.
That's somebody's office.
That literally is somebody's office. They just, all 3 of those studios, the French, the German, and the British, are all just the same office.
So I had a point. Sorry. Well, no, it's okay. I'll edit that out.
So they've superimposed the video of the spaceship. They superimposed the video while the British guy's talking. They've superimposed the video of the spaceship on a monitor behind him. The fact that they have a monitor behind him talking is kind of the first time that I feel like we might be in a studio,
right?
Because usually, if you look at even the sets from that era, they would have clocks of the times in different places above them. They would have a map.
Yeah.
They would have the name of the broadcast. They would still use wood paneling. The desks would not be traditional desks, though. They still had news desks.
Edward R. Murrow did occasionally use, and it was more of a desk, so it looked like he was reporting from where he worked. So I think you could do that, but I think, again, that is a very weird choice with the British
having that lion on the table and everything.
But I do like the fact, and this is what I was thinking
put a
moment
lion
ago.
on there, like in the last scene with the Japanese family. They have the
that's
little
true.
kind of
That is
samurai.
a nice little motif.
But I mean, just the idea that, what do we have here?
Right.
Let's walk in the proper
What's British?
room. What's walking the prop room and find everything looks British? Here's a lion.
He should just have bad teeth at that point. But he does refer to them as monkeys.
And
in this scene.
when he does that, he looks like he's a little taken aback. Like this is the first time he's found out about this.
So
like he hasn't read the news before he's reporting it.
I thought the same thing, Sean. I thought because Sean and I've worked in television we did that for years. You know that very rarely does breaking news come that they haven't at least had a little feed on that desk monitor or something.
Yeah,
they know it's there.
Happening.
So they know what they're going to say, so it's not shocking.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the instances of a 9/11 happening right then and no one knows. We're getting reports of this. Or a president being
assassinated or something. But this is, apes have been here a while. This is not...
And they're reporting on something that has transpired already and come to them. It's not breaking at that moment.
So they should know about it,
And they're showing this stuff. I hadn't thought of this. When he specifically says one of the 2 American spaceships believed to now have been disintegrated in orbit, he lets us know that they thought they lost the spaceships in orbit.
So if
they thought they lost
orbit?
That's at least the spin.
That's the spin. Okay, we'll think about it that way. It's not part of the story because why would they have sent Brent up in a spaceship later on if they thought that Colonel Taylor's had destroyed in the orbit?
Right.
I do find it interesting that they're not referencing this as ANSA anywhere. Like they didn't say NASA. We would say NASA.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't have, the British guy would not have to say American spacecrafts. He just would have said NASA.
Yeah.
And everybody would have known what he was talking about. So there was a scene that was cut from this when the British newscaster says, "If you can call it man by monkeys." Now. Dun, 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 dun. Well, that's just it. This is the comedy moment, right? That was supposed to be the moment.
This entire play is comedy.
What they cut was a U.S. newscaster who, very unrestrained, was supposed to say, and this is all caps in Dane's script, "Lost spaceship hijacked by aponauts."
Damn it! I want that scene back in that movie.
And then it was supposed to cut to
that would have been Fox
to the scene we see after that. But one of the things that I pointed out, and I pointed this out last week when we were talking about things, when specifically he says manned by monkeys, and maybe I'm being hyper aware, when they cut to the chamber, they cut to an African American couple walking in front of the camera.
Yeah, I remember you
through
mentioning
the press
that.
people. Now, that may just be happenstance, but the fact that he says monkeys and he cuts to 2 African American couples, and for half a second, I'm like, one African American couple. For half a second, I visually thought I was looking at Zira and Cornelius.
Well,
regardless of their race, or the commentary meant to be on the race, I thought for a second I was cutting to Zira and Cornelius.
They may have even cut to that thinking that I'm going to give them the benefit of every doubt. Maybe they juxtapose those 2 together to even point out the hypocrisy that we would call an African American a monkey. And this leads to a lot of what we talked about in this coming weekend's in between, the ideas and the social mores and things that go into it. So perhaps they were trying to be forward thinking and trying to say this is what it is. But now that you say that would not occur today. And if that did, they would be eviscerated for that one moment in this film.
They would have, by monkeys. Here's an African American couple. But we just came from a presidential, the Oval Office, where every person in that Oval Office was white. When we look in this hallway scene, we have this African American couple. We have one reporter who's African American kind of hovering around a little bit, and we have one African American woman in the background at some point, but largely it's still mostly white and mostly white men all around these people at the time. It's just, I don't know if this was intentional casting, but you have to imagine for this type of production, the casting is intentional.
I would think it's intentional.
But not necessarily intended to be racist.
I don't think it's intended to be racist. I don't think that at all. I think if anything, they're trying so hard to point out what we're doing to society at this time with our racism that I think they would actually avoid that at every cost. Now, back to the film at hand. These newscasts, what we see here in these scenes, the chaos of people interviewing people for information. Again, I think that these scenes should have been ahead of what we see with the president. The president, when we get him later, I almost think, I never thought of this before, but you can have that expository scene where they're giving tons of information so the characters in the room know what we already know. Should have been everybody firing at the president, Mr. President, we know this, and he could have stopped it and said, I know every bit of it. Tell me what are we going to do?
Why are you telling me what I already know?
Yeah. Tell me what we're going to do. You know, they miss an opportunity to escalate. And this scene at least allows the escalation. I like the shots. I like the shots where they're walking to the camera as though we're another news reporter getting that information.
Right. I mean, it is from the perspective of a camera that's following the news reporters. Right. The news reporters themselves, there's some cameras on the side, but we're not following a reporter, which I think is a little bit left out. We're just following the chaos of the scene. If we're supposed to be following a camera, there should have been a reporter kind of attached to it also asking the questions.
And cameras of that era. In fact, can you flip around your monitor real quick? I just want to see.
Were they shooting on film still?
Well, that's on. They should have been shooting on. There's a film camera in the background. There's film camera again. They're all 16 millimeter cameras. They should have been shooting on film. You might have had one video, but also the weird thing is most film cameras at that time, that's why you see the reporters holding the microphone because they would also have sun lamps on the top. But,
the audio was separate than the film.
If I'm an erroneous photographer, I would not.
Paul.
It does look a little like Aaron Paul. I would not have that audio feed because I can't just pick up. I don't have it's not like a video camera. It has a boom mic that could catch it. You would have to have somebody holding something. So what I'm going to say is maybe one of these guys is our reporter and we just don't know it. That's what I hope they were going for.
Oh, I see.
Because that's how it would have to work. But we're being nitpicky. But we see a lot of people coming toward it. There's a lot of chaos. This is wonderfully done. And in this moment, we don't necessarily meet anyone in particular. We begin to see the faces of people, but
the gentleman that was in the president's chamber is the last person that is coming down the hallway. So clearly this is the vice president, somebody, but Todd, what did you pick up on?
I noticed in there, and I wanted to adhere. These are rules that Richard and Sean hold me to because I've seen these films so many times. I knew who this character was. I knew who the actor was, and I'll give that reason in a minute. But their rules are if we don't hear a name, we can't say a name.
We don't know who that person is, yes.
Somebody in the background screams out, it says, Dr. Hassline.
And it's actually
I'm sorry, I did that in my worst Southern dialect.
And it's actually in the script as well. He is called out in this moment. So we could have talked about it anyway. We just, whether it's picked up or not, I don't know if the audience noticed it.
I must have listened. I was not going to come in here and you guys tell me I was wrong. I listened at least 5+ times and Hassline is thrown out. So why is Hassline significant?
The Hassline curve.
We've got the Hassline curve. He has been mentioned throughout these films, at least as the scientist who understood and put them in this place where they were going that led to the Planet of the Apes. So he's a huge figure in the lore of the Planet of the Apes world. Would we agree to that?
Just by name alone at this point, yes.
Yes.
He's been name-checked, yes.
Dr. Hassline is played by Eric Braeden, which I've already told these two guys why he's famous. So I'm going to go ahead and tell the audience. He has played Victor Newman on The Young and the Restless for over 40 years. Now, in my college years, my sister used to watch Young and the Restless, and eventually when I went to college, I was one of those college kids that was where my break was. I would go to the student union every day and watch Young and the Restless, and he's been on there. He's played on all its spinoffs. The guy's had a huge career, not a lot of film work, but he is a staple of everyday soap operas.
Wow. Is he still alive?
He is still alive and he's still working.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's still on there now. And of course, he is the billionaire money man who's the philanderer of the world. He is the bad guy there. So in the moment to me, you see Eric Braeden, you know he is not going to be a good guy.
Well, when we're talking specifically with just this minute, the minute we saw before, he's on the president's side. If the audience were able to pick up Dr. Hassline, they might know why he's now involved with what the president's doing, what's going on, as a representative of ANSA or whatever, something like that. But he then gets us a little bit further down that line that he might not be a good guy.
Right.
I mean, why is he expecting to get fear out of this?
That was it. Exactly. He tells us, he says,
what's the question?
What do you expect to experience from this historic meeting? And he says, fear. His fear? The public's fear?
The ape's fear?
The ape's fear? Like, what is he?
From an elected position that is appointed, I guess that's the way I would want to say it, from a position that's appointed by an elected figure. That's how I need to say it, because that's usually how these kind of people come into being in these places. If I'm the president of the United States and I put this dude in place, the last thing I want that dumb motherfucker to say is fear, because now you've incited panic to everybody.
Yeah. But I mean, he's not necessarily. I mean, we have all sorts of people in politics that just really don't know how to talk and just kind of riff off of things. I'm talking about even just, various cabinet members don't even know how to talk on camera and so on. Yeah. So at this moment, yes, you're right. It would be insane to say fear because you didn't strike panic. But I'm still curious. He says fear. This is kind of the first sense to me when he says this that we might have a villain in the film.
Yeah.
Like at no point have I felt like we've had necessarily a villain yet, except for the gorilla,
yeah.
gorilla in the cage.
The murdering gorilla.
Murderous gorilla.